the second group of areas that this game is utterly broken. So, the gameplay itself is exactly the same as Fallout 4, assuming that it actually works, of course. The amount of bugs and glitches that I alone have experienced are so numerous that I filled up my PS4's hard drive with recordings of them. The stuff that I have experienced are nothing short of hilarious. In the beta I saw this lovely monstrosity, which happened a few feet away from my girlfriend who was stuck in a chair. This game is so completely and utterly broken, and yes, whilst Bethesda have been patching and fixing it up a lot, it took nearly a month to get the game in a more stable state, and I won't call its current state acceptable, but it's better, I guess. I mean, if you think that this is in any way acceptable, I'd like to point out that spending any length of time in the trade menu can slow the game down drastically. You see this? This is real-time footage of me trying to make a trade with another character. Notice how fucking slow it is and how long it is taking me. It's a real shame that they couldn't give it to players early, in a sort of demo form, so that players could find problems within the game and report them a few months before the game was out. You know, like a beta? A break it early application? Oh wait, they had that! It was just a week before launch! Honestly, so many people were defensive about this game that because it was in beta, that made all of its problems okay a week before launch. And that just made me laugh. No! That's not a beta! Some would call it a server stress test, others would call it a demo for high paying shit munchers to enjoy. I'd personally call it a warning sign for people who pre-ordered an expensive edition to jump ship before it launched. And unfortunately, not many people took it, not nearly enough. I know I'm stupid and I would have bought it anyway, but fuck. A lot of these bugs can really dampen your experience, especially when they put you in an impossible situation, like being stuck in the floor, or instantly blasted to Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion the second you fucking spawn. Oh, that happened, by the way, but I'll get to that in a bit, because that's a story on its own. Honestly, this game released in a state that I wouldn't say was good enough for a pre-alpha build. I'd say, even after all they did, this is barely good enough to be the beta. Yeah, a month in, and it's only just good enough to be considered beta build. This idea of release now and fix later can seriously fuck off. Games like No Man's Sky, Fallout 76, We Happy Few, they don't deserve players' time and money. There's a reason that AAA games have gotten away with being expensive over the past decade or so, and that was mostly due to quality assurance. I am starting to ask, with games like this, No Man's Sky, We Happy Few, Aliens Colonial Marines, Duke Nukem Forever...
Install one of the greatest science fiction video game series of all time and get away with this? Where do you get the nerve to do something like that?
Assassin's Creed Unity, Mass Effect Andromeda, The Last Guardian, The Quiet Man, Homefront 2, Walking Dead Season 3, Walking Dead Survival Instinct, and I'm not even mentioning the amount of games that came out without bugs that were just joyless pieces of shit. With all that in mind, it's starting to rattle my faith in AAA gaming, because at one point, you could at least expect the game to run as intended. Now, honestly, it's a crapshoot. I've been playing RimWorld this past month or so. I got it the same time as Fallout 76. And it's such a better game. It was made by a much smaller team, and obviously has a lot more heart put into it. And amazingly, I've only encountered one thing that I could call a bug thus far. And that bug was as small as some menus always assuming that your character's a he. Like, it says, your character got sick, he won't be back on his feet for a bit, even if they're a woman. If that's the worst thing that can happen in an indie game in comparison to this shit show, I am more than happy to spend money on that. I've actually gotten to the point where I've stopped buying from companies. Not out of outrage, but it just doesn't seem like a good investment. I've stopped buying EA's games after Mass Effect Andromeda because what's the point? They'll release a product that a few people can like, and those who actually manage to like it are rewarded with the series being killed and the franchise being shelved. And maybe, if they're really lucky and the CEO is feeling merciful, he might make said franchise a shitty mobile game in 10 years for a Chinese market to enjoy. It's not a coincidence that FIFA 19 has dropped its physical sales by 25% this year. FIFA was, even last year, one of the hottest franchises, but EA has alienated its players to the point that none of them want to touch this shit anymore. I know some people put this to digital distribution, but 25% of players is way too big of a dip for that. I mean, I'd legitimately be surprised if it was a 10% dip per year on that front. And if that's the case, that's still 15% of people who played it last year but aren't fucking bothering this year. I bring this up because I feel it's important, as Bethesda were once a company whose products I admired and looked forward to playing. Perhaps a little too much. And now, they're just another Konami or EA or Activision, not giving a shit about the customer, not bothering to make a good product, lying through their teeth, and treating even the highest paying customers as shit munchers who you can just fob off and they'll still buy your shit. They haven't got enough for canvas duffel bags that people actually paid for. Meanwhile, they're greasing the palms of journalists with expensive items. Did you know they gave Young Ye a $200 Power Armor edition of Fallout 76? Despite the fact that he hasn't had a single positive thing to say about Fallout 76. Not that I blame him for this, he was just as baffled as everyone else. And hell, I'd be happy to accept that from a company. But it really shows that all they give a shit about are actual influencers. And that their priorities lie with them. When the canvas bags and free collector's editions go to those whose opinions Bethesda feel matter. And if you're a paying customer, then they've already got your money, so they don't need to bother with that shit anymore. Why try and get loyalty out of a customer when you can buy off a critic? People who supported the game didn't get that. They didn't get anything for doing so. They had to fucking buy theirs, and they were lied to in the process. They got a worthless product when they were told they were getting something better. They're still getting shit on. And it's truly baffling how Bethesda expects anyone to want to buy any more of their products. I mean, in truth, I can't buy another collector's edition from them. Given that what they gave me was not what was advertised, even if, to be fair, I didn't notice the canvas duffel bag, yeah, somehow I missed it, I kind of overlooked it, and it came as a nice surprise. But even then, a con is a con is a con. And I have to ask, like, next time they make a collector's edition, is the T-51B power helmet going to be a bucket? I know that was a joke earlier. It turned out to be a pretty nifty replica, but how the fuck do I know that I'm getting what I paid for with Bethesda? How do I know that the terms aren't just going to change, and that the T-60 helmet with Fallout 5 isn't going to be too expensive, so they give me a blue bucket and tell me to pretend? How do I know that if I need to ask for a refund or a replacement item, they won't just leak all of my personal information online again? In fact, I'd say my credit card details are safer with Sony than these arse clowns right now. And I refuse to link any of my credit cards or payment details to PSN Store. I actually go through the annoying as fuck but safer process of buying cards off Amazon and, well, you know, uploading the codes. And I see myself having to do this with Bethesda from now on. I will buy their games as physical copies from stores after launch, and I have no intentions of buying personally from them or buying any copy more than $60 ever again. Not only that, but I will probably wait to see if the game is worth the time, effort and stress that Fallout 76 required from me. So, congratulations, you've whittled your goodwill away to the point that I went from buying a $200 collector's edition to the point that I'm seriously on the umming and ahhing stage of buying the game for £20 1 year after launch, when it's at its most fixed, and I'm honestly terrified of the prospect of directly doing business with you. Are you even a real business? Are you just some fucking shit producers type scam? In fact, I'd say this applies to most AAA gaming. Not all, but most of it. It's starting to make me think that we're heading towards another crash, like in the 80s. Originally, this was a more original thing to say back in October, but now everyone's saying it. But companies are making impossible promises to their shareholders to the point that every game has completely failed to meet expectations for the best part of a decade because they need more money, more and more. Customer satisfaction, though, is at an all-time low. Companies are targeting individuals instead of groups of customers, and once you've drained those people of all their time and money, you're not going to get it back. If I bankrupt myself with a gambling addiction, I'm not going to be able to get that money back. Though we'd still have indie games and the lark, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5 to 10 years, AAA gaming explodes as a result of this, and they would die for a few years, like Atari before it. I imagine history will repeat itself, and they will get burned on the economic boom that they themselves have made, and keep feeding kerosene in an effort to make it brighter.